Hello, this is Mark Keene from Keene Engineering. Earlier in 2019, the GPA LDMA gave us an offer to come out and do some testing on some of their land up in Duesenberg. And I got to tell you, we had a great time, great place, good gold, so we really had a lot of fun. But you can see what we're doing here is we're actually out doing a complete setup on our 210 dry washer. This is our largest dry washer, and we've been engineering and designing this thing for coming up on 5 years, and we keep coming up with the new changes and new improvements. One of the interesting things that we've come across, and I didn't really realize this when we first started designing the piece of equipment, the dry washer itself, we've got it working fantastic. We've kind of debugged it, got it working really well, but we ran into another problem, is trying to come up with a good self-feeding system, and that was probably a bigger challenge than the dry washer itself. We ended up having to come up with a completely brand new feed hopper system. So on this new feed hopper system, we tried a lot of different things. We tried incorporating conveyor belts directly underneath it. We tried a utilization of vibration. And I mean, we kind of had it working okay, but it was more labor intensive. See, our goal is to have a machine that requires only 2 men to operate. 1 man to operate the heavy equipment, your backhoe loader, whatever you want to call it, and the other guy just to monitor to make sure that the system is up and running correctly. So the feed hopper became much more challenging than we thought, because I couldn't get anything to maintain a good, consistent flow of material. See, whenever you're dry washing, one of the most important things, especially on a machine of this magnitude where you're trying to process, 5-8 cubic yards an hour, is to be able to feed it smoothly and consistently with material. If you don't have that capability, you can't really optimize the volume, and with a big dry washer like this, our main goal is to build something that can handle a lot of material. So at this point, we kind of reached almost like a desperation stage. We couldn't get anything to work with just maintenance free and an adjustable flow of material. So Pat and I and Barry and Bob, a few other friends of ours, we were trying to think out of the box, and we actually went ahead and built a dry auger system. Now, most people will tell you that dry augers don't work. Well, we were able to get it to work with a lot of creativity and a lot of trying different things. Over horsepowered this system, giving it just a lot of additional horsepower to get this machine to work. And the cool thing is we actually have an adjustment on the auger system that we can control the speed. So we have the capability to set this machine to run 2 yards an hour, 4 yards an hour, 8 yards an hour, whatever speed we really wanted, just by turning a knob. And that was really important, because in different types of conditions, if you're in real small sandy material, well, you may have to slow it down. If you're in a rocky granular material where a lot of it's going to be washed off the classifier system, then you might want to go ahead and run the auger a little quicker. So anyways, it took several times out and a lot of testing, even here in our parking lot of the shop, and blowing a lot of motors up and augers and other things, but we've got it working pretty damn good. I mean, it still needs some refinements, but I believe we're definitely getting closer now. And again, that smooth, consistent feed into a dry washer is so critical if you want to maintain optimum fine gold recovery and maintain, heavy yardage loads on the machine. All right, so you can see here we're loading the machine with it's about roughly a 7-foot wide 1 yard bucket, and we're able to refill the hopper approximately every 5 minutes or so. So we're really able to pound a lot of yardage through the machine. So that we're really happy with. The only problem in this particular location, the material was extremely wet. In fact, it was so wet it created problems in other areas of the dry washer as well. But I'll get into that in a little bit. But you can see that the hopper is doing a pretty decent design. It's funny, we experimented with lots of different grizzly bars on the top, and round rods, square rods, rods with round rods on top. So we finally came up with a nice little design that worked out really well. But the point is, you can see that the machine can really handle a lot of material. I mean, we're pounding material through that box. In fact, we had to take the loader periodically and clean out our tailing piles, because it was just, I didn't get pictures of it, but we had stacked up probably 6-7 feet by probably 6-7 feet wide piles that we had to continue flatten out with the heavy equipment. But again, this does give you an opportunity to see, how much capacity this machine has. I mean, look at the material going through there. Again, the biggest problem we had here is that the material was so wet that you could literally take a handful of the material that came out of the tailing pile and actually make a dirt clod and throw it. That's definitely way too wet to run through a dry washer. What's interesting is later in the day we actually had to hose off the riffle boards because the mud and the moisture had actually plugged up the pores in the riffle board. Alright, this shows you the discharge end of the 210 dry washer. You can see the material coming off the top conveyor, and now you can see the top conveyor dropping onto a 1/4-inch vibrating shaker deck screen. The cool thing about the shaker deck screen is it really does an outstanding job of getting all the 1/4-inch minus material through that big screen, then it falls into the dry washer itself. So it really works extremely well. If you were to check for sand or anything else that had come out the other tailing port, it's pretty much clean. So that vibrating shaker deck does a really good does a really good job. Here you can actually see the material coming directly out the bottom of the dry washer, and again, that's a lot of material. You're talking yards and yards and yards per hour there. But this also gives you an opportunity to see how much moisture we had to deal with. I mean, it really did significantly affect both the recovery and the performance of the dry washer. But all in all, it still did a pretty good job handling it. We were kind of surprised how well we did. We actually found some halfway decent gold when we were there. Now these next shots, you're going to see the dry washer. Now you can tell here, anybody who's an experienced dry washer will understand that the material is too moist. But you can see the machines, for such an adverse negative condition, you can see how it's working pretty good. And you can see in the back of the box, you see the material which is being fed across the riffle board, and then as it travels down the riffle board, it gets aerated and vibrated, and simply the gold and all the heavy material settles down in front of the riffles. In other words, you're working almost like an aqueous suspension, but we're doing it with air versus water. The everything is floating across the riffle board on a cushion of air mixed with a very controlled amount of vibration. And this allows the gold and the heavy material to settle in front of the riffles and not escape the box. But you can see the smaller material kind of rolls over the riffles almost like a wave of water. But you can see it's, even for this really difficult condition, it seems to be performing pretty good. And just another shot here of the discharge material. And another thing too, whenever you're running a dry washer, you can tell it's a pretty dusty environment. It's really important that you have to do your safety things. You should be wearing a hard hat. You should be wearing your dust masks, because you never know what kind of stuff you're going to end up breathing. At the end of the day, we did 2 cleanups on the first day I was out there, and each cleanup we did was about a 1/4 ounce apiece. I'm not sure exactly how much we caught because we ended up donating to the club, but I got to tell you, we had a blast. It's a great place to go prospecting, and I'm so grateful we had a chance to use our machine again, and we were able to work out some more bugs. So we'll see you soon with the latest updates.